Hello, everyone. I'm Kenshin. Welcome to History Talk. Please subscribe, like, comment, and share. Also, remember to turn on the notification bell. Thank you. Today's historical discussion is about the U.S. Army's Screaming Eagles, the 101st Airborne Division. With the Russian invasion of Ukraine ongoing for over 3 years and tensions rising between the United States-led NATO alliance, when Romania faced threats, the United States deployed troops to bases in allied countries. While this might seem ordinary, the significance of the deployed troops was entirely different. So, what was this unit? This unit is none other than the renowned 101st Airborne Division, also known as the Screaming Eagles, one of the elite airborne divisions in the U.S. Army. It is reputed to be capable of deploying to any battlefield worldwide within a few hours. This deployment of the 4,700-strong unit from Fort Campbell, Kentucky, holds particular significance as it marks the first deployment of the division to Europe since World War II, spanning over 80 years. Today, I'll talk to you about this unit and its involvement in World War II. Firstly, let's talk about the background of this unit. It was formally established on November 2, 1918, at Camp Shelby, Mississippi. However, the First World War ended just 9 days later, leading to its disbandment on December 11 of the same year. It was reconstituted in the reserve component of the Army in 1921 and officially organized on September 10, in Wisconsin, inheriting the legacy of the Wisconsin Volunteer Regiment's bald eagle mascot and the Screaming Eagles nickname from the Civil War era. On August 15, 1942, after being disbanded, it officially became an Army Airborne Division, thus giving birth to the 101st Airborne Division. As the battles the 101st Airborne Division participated in during World War II in Europe were crucial, I will introduce them in chronological order. First and foremost is the initiation of the American involvement in Europe, the Normandy landings. In 1943, at the Tehran Conference, considering the Soviet suppression of the Nazi German offensive on the Eastern Front, the United States, United Kingdom, and Soviet Union deemed it time to open a second front in Europe. The objective was to break through Hitler's Atlantic Wall, stretching from Norway to the Spanish-French border, a total length of 2,700 kilometers. Despite various fortifications, bunkers, and defensive structures along this coastline, defending it entirely with the then Nazi German troop numbers was challenging. The key to the attack was determined by the British in August 1942 when they launched a medium-scale amphibious assault at Dieppe, France, learning from its failure. They abandoned Calais, the closest to Britain and considered most likely by the Germans, opting for a combined sea and air landing in Normandy, France. The commonly known Normandy landings were just part of Operation Overlord, which included the preparatory bombardment under the code name Operation Neptune, and the largest-scale deception operation in history, Operation Bodyguard, used to confuse the true landing objectives. Originally scheduled for May 1944, the operation was delayed to June 6 due to insufficient naval vessels and adverse weather conditions. On that day, 3 airborne divisions were set to parachute behind enemy lines: the British 6th Airborne Division and the US 82nd and 101st Airborne Divisions. Their mission was to control vital transportation routes and hinder German reinforcement efforts. At the outset of the airborne assault, the lack of experienced navigators among American paratroopers, coupled with strong winds at night, resulted in missed drop zones, scattering troops across various locations along the front lines. Some even tragically landed in deliberately flooded low-lying areas by the Germans, leading to casualties due to heavy equipment and drowning in water barely knee-deep. The Normandy landings were divided into 5 beaches, with the most severe losses occurring at Omaha Beach, where the American forces were responsible. The operation faced significant difficulties, with 27 out of 32 tanks sinking shortly after landing. Only 5 tanks remained operational, with 2 destroyed by enemy fire. During the first 2 hours, no American soldier successfully set foot on the western section of the beach, leading some to believe the operation would fail. It wasn't until June 8 that the planned progress of securing a beachhead on D-Day was achieved. In total, the American casualties at Omaha amounted to 2,500 soldiers killed, representing a quarter of the total Allied casualties that day, earning Omaha Beach the nickname Bloody Omaha. On the airborne side, the 82nd Airborne Division occupied its designated target, Saint-Mère-Église, on the morning of June 6, becoming the first liberated town in France. Meanwhile, the 101st Airborne Division seized several positions behind Utah Beach and destroyed German artillery emplacements, a feat included in the classic battle narratives taught at West Point Military Academy. Following these operations was the Market Garden mission by the 101st Airborne Division, involving the capture of 9 major bridges in the Netherlands, known as Market, and the subsequent armored rendezvous to cross the formidable Rhine River, aiming to penetrate Germany and end the war. This was also the largest airborne operation in military history. After suffering the blows of the Normandy invasion, the remaining German forces retreated to the Netherlands and the eastern part of France by August. Despite Field Marshal Montgomery of Britain leading the 21st Army Group to capture 3 ports, the continuously engaged and unrested troops found it challenging to continue. Moreover, by the end of August, the Allies discovered that the front line was advancing too quickly, and the logistical supply was insufficient. Relying solely on makeshift ports in Normandy and the port of Cherbourg for supplies, even though the British captured Antwerp, the German control of the sea access led to the awkward necessity of slowing down the offensive. The most significant evidence was the over 70,000 tons of supplies piled up at the ports in early September, yet there weren't enough transport vehicles to deliver them to the front lines. Many railways had been destroyed by the Allies before the landing, exacerbating the situation. Additionally, 1,400 British military trucks experienced engine piston failures, rendering them unusable, further worsening the circumstances. These trucks were originally capable of transporting 800 tons of supplies daily for 2 divisions, but now, even 3 newly arrived American infantry divisions had to dismantle their trucks to provide spare parts for the transport vehicles. Apart from transportation issues, there were significant disputes among Allied commanders, primarily concerning whether to prioritize supply or the elimination of remaining German forces. General Bradley and Field Marshal Montgomery clashed over advancing across the Rhine River, directly confronting the limited supply issue. However, both violated General Eisenhower's strategy for the offensive. During this time, Major General Taylor led the 101st Airborne Division, responsible for occupying bridges northwest of Eindhoven. While encountering minimal resistance during the initial assault, they successfully captured 4 out of 5 targeted bridges. Yet, when advancing south, they faced resistance from the German 59th Infantry Division due to the failure of the British 30th Corps to seal off the area, allowing the Germans to cross the southern part of the Beveland Isthmus to confront the 101st Airborne Division. By the next day, facing the loss of the Sun Bridge and the failed operation to seize the bridge in the town of Best several miles away, the 101st Division moved southward, almost reaching the northern end of Eindhoven. At noon, they met with the advancing British 30th Corps from the north. In the afternoon, the main force requested the 30th Corps, through wireless communication, to bring bridge-building engineers to the front lines. They bypassed Eindhoven and camped south of Sun while waiting for the Royal Engineers to construct the Operation Market bridge for river crossing. On the third day, the 101st Airborne Division faced a German counterattack. By nearly 2 p.m., British tank units appeared, attacking the German rear, forcing them to surrender. Following this, a small unit of German Panther tanks reached the town of Soy and attacked the American engineers setting up the Bailey Bridge. The paratroopers, who had just arrived, defeated the German tanks with anti-tank guns and captured the Soy Bridge. Finally, the 101st Airborne Division advanced towards capturing Best. However, on the fourth day, they still encountered resistance from the Germans attempting to cut off the roads but ultimately retreated due to ammunition shortages. By the fifth day, Despite the 101st Airborne Division and the British 30th Corps expanding their gains together, the overall situation favored the Germans. The problem was that Allied infantry units were slow to arrive and complete their missions, leaving the Rhine River as a formidable obstacle to advancing towards Germany. Eventually, they had to swallow the bitter pill of retreat. After regrouping, the 101st Division, reinforced with additional troops, participated in the year-end Battle of the Bulge, also known as the Battle of Bastogne. The Germans aimed to recapture the port of Antwerp, making control of the town crucial as all roads to the port passed through it. Eisenhower decided to deploy the 82nd and 101st Airborne Divisions, which had experienced the Normandy campaign and spent 2 months reorganizing in Reims, to defend the area. They received an urgent call on the evening of December 17, but without adequate transport vehicles, both units had to find a way to move. The 101st Airborne Division didn't depart until the afternoon of the 18th, facing adverse weather conditions. Overcoming numerous challenges, they traveled from Werbomont to Bastogne at an altitude of 1,463 feet. Due to previous significant losses inflicted by American tank units, the German forces perceived the defending troops as formidable, slowing down the establishment of defensive lines in the area. Seizing the precious time gap, the 101st Division constructed defensive positions, leading to the defeat of the German 2nd Armored Division 2 days later, exacerbated by a lack of fuel supply. The 101st Division established a circular defensive line, but during the defense, almost the entire medical unit suffered heavy casualties. Confronted with the resolute defense of the American forces, General von Leutwitz, commander of the German 47th Armored Corps, decided to encircle Bastogne. On the evening of December 20 or 21, simultaneous attacks were launched from the south and southwest. This decision proved highly effective, with one unit successfully penetrating the American artillery positions. By noon on December 21, all 7 roads leading to Bastogne were cut off by the Germans, confirming the encirclement of the 101st Airborne Division and armored infantry units. The situation worsened due to the severe lack of winter clothing, ammunition, food, medical supplies, and the absence of most senior officers, including Major General Maxwell D. Taylor. Additionally, harsh winter weather conditions hindered both aerial resupply and tactical air support. The deadlock persisted until the second day of Christmas, when Lieutenant Colonel Charles P. Boggess, also known as Cobra King, successfully led a breakthrough from Assenoir to Bastogne, reaching the defense lines of the 326th Engineer Battalion at 4:50 p.m. Subsequently, communication was restored between the 101st Airborne Division and supply bases on the 27th. Wounded personnel were evacuated to the rear, and General Taylor, along with the 4th Armored Division, assumed command in Bastogne. Despite the planned withdrawal and rest, the 101st Airborne Division received orders to counterattack, directing the 506th Regiment to attack northwards, resulting in the recapture of Recagny on January 9, Foy on January 10, and Foy on January 13, 1945. The most famous incident in the battle involved Brigadier General Anthony McAuliffe, Deputy Commander of the 101st Airborne Division. When he received a written surrender demand from German General von Leutwitz, McAuliffe replied with just one word: nuts. The commander of the 327th Glider Infantry Regiment explained to the German ceasefire party that it meant, "Go to hell." Newspapers later referred to the division as the "battered bastards of Bastogne." Afterward, the 101st Division conducted training for combat in Japan following Germany's surrender, which halted upon learning of Japan's surrender and the end of World War II. On November 30, 1945, the division was disbanded from the U.S. Army. In 1956, the division was reorganized and returned to the front line. In 1967, it participated in 15 battles during the Vietnam War, with 4,011 fatalities and 18,259 injuries, ranking as the third highest in casualties among U.S. Army division-level units. In 1968, it was reorganized into an air mobile division under significant downsizing, then converted into an air assault division. In 1985, nearly 250 members of the 101st Airborne Division perished when Arrow Air Flight 1285 crashed, with no survivors. In January 1991, it deployed to the Persian Gulf for the Gulf War, where its R-64 Apache helicopters participated in the first wave of aerial assaults, destroying 2 Iraqi radar sites. In 2003, it joined the 5th Corps under the command of Major General David Petraeus for the Iraq War. After being withdrawn for equipment replenishment and rest in early 2004, it returned to Iraq in the summer of 2005 for combat missions. Regarding the Distinguished Airborne Division's World War II history, I strongly recommend HBO's epic production, Band of Brothers, particularly the episode Day of Days, featuring Lieutenant Richard Winters. This series provides a vivid portrayal of the unit's experiences and the European theater of World War II, making it a timeless masterpiece worth watching.